Hi everyone, I'm Joe. Today it's time for me to do my Spring 2020 book haul. I have not done a book haul in more than a year, since January 2019 I believe, and I thought it's about time I do one. The reason that I haven't done a book haul in so long is simply because I have not been buying as many books in the last year, plus the books I have purchased I have been reading remarkably quickly after buying them, usually within 1 or 2 weeks time. And whilst I am still reading books very quickly after buying them, I am, due to current world events and obviously not going out as much, going to be buying rather more books for the foreseeable future than I did last year, which is completely fine, frankly, because I'm going to be in an awful lot and I'm going to need more to read than I usually do, which is quite an achievement by itself. Anyway, there are 22 books in this book haul, and without further delay I'll get straight into talking about them. The first of which are the Rift War Legacy series by Raymond E. Feist. These 4 books are Krondor the Betrayal, Krondor the Assassins, Krondor Tear the Gods, and finally, and not a Krondor book, Jimmy and the Crawler, which is the first and only novella set within the Rift War universe. The Rift War universe is a fantasy series and world created by Feist in the early mid-80s. Now, it is one that I am reading my way through. There are 30 books in it in total, with different duologies, trilogies, sets of 4, and indeed one set of 5, I believe. This is an interesting quadrilogy, of which I would only recommend you read if you have read the Rift War Trilogy, the original trilogy, because these expand upon points and are basically mini stories based off that original trilogy and indeed off other books. So this, you could read them by themselves, but you would spoil the other books for yourself, frankly, and I would really not recommend you read these until you've read at least the original trilogy, if not a few of the others as well, because they do tie in rather nicely, and I would recommend them overall. They're just really fun, quite classic fantasy with a few very interesting ideas thrown into the mix. The second book that I'm going to talk about is Astounding, written by Alec Nevala-Lee. This is about John W. Campbell, Isaac Asimov, Robert A. Heinlein, L. Ron Hubbard, and the golden age of science fiction. Now, I knew a little bit about Asimov, Heinlein, not so much about Hubbard, and almost nothing at all about John W. Campbell. Campbell was obviously a well-known editor of a certain magazine in the 50s and 60s, which is the golden age of science fiction, as it is now referred to. And it's basically about his influence on both the other 3 authors mentioned, plus many other authors of that time, which shaped science fiction as a whole, not just Western science fiction, but globally. It really did have a massive lasting legacy, and indeed that to me is one of the major things that it appears that Campbell wanted. He wanted popularity, he wanted to be well thought of, but he also had a bit of a thing about he must have this legacy after himself, which he's created, although the legacy is not always the most positive, because he wasn't exactly a very nice person, let's say. Frankly, the other authors weren't entirely pleasant either. So it's interesting, just not entirely the easiest book, because frankly, between these 4 men, you've got racism, sexism, homophobia, and every other type of sort of intolerant behaviour you can think of, basically, are split fairly evenly between these 4 men. They're not particularly pleasant, but it's interesting to read about, however, despite that, because they have a lasting impact and legacy within science fiction, which obviously I read an awful lot of. The next book that I am going to talk about is Harmony, written by Project Itoh. This is obviously not somebody's real name, this is their pseudonym or pseudonyme, I believe you would say. This is a fairly short novel written, published by Heike Suru, who is a publisher that I've come to really enjoy in the last year and a half, roughly. And this is a novel set in a utopian world. Specifically, the medical technology is really advanced. However, some people don't entirely agree with the methods that the government, indeed the global sort of government, has decided on to monitor and maintain health. They are going a little bit far, frankly, and not giving people choice, let's say, and there are issues with this in ways that you might expect and ways that you might not expect. Interesting ideas, interesting writing, and I recommend this overall. The next book is actually one of the strangest books I have ever read in my entire life, and that is 10 Billion Days and 100 Billion Nights, written by Mitsuse. This is a fairly short novel. This brings spirituality and science fiction together, which is not unusual by itself. This is basically about the creation of the universe and about how the universe could be created, keeping in mind spirituality and the possibility that something more could exist, sort of like God type figures, although they're not entirely gods in the way you'd think. I cannot explain this book too well despite having read it, because I didn't completely understand it. I liked it, I just didn't fully understand it. This book will need, and indeed I will reread this at some future point in the next few years to try to decipher it more. It's one of those kind of books you need to read it several times to really understand it fully, which frankly I think is worth it. The next two books are both science fiction, and those are Mortal Engines and the Futurological Congress, both by Stanislaw Lem. Stanislaw Lem is a Polish author. These obviously translated to English. Now, I knew nothing about these two books when I bought them. The Mortal Engines is actually a short story collection, which I actually did not know at all. I bought them purely because I have read two books by Lem before, and I greatly enjoyed both of them. And so I want more books by Lem, and I bought these. There was no other reason for them. He has an interesting writing style, interesting ideas. I'm not going to talk about these books too much themselves because they are very short. Obviously, one of them is a short story collection, but great writing, great ideas, and I would recommend Lem overall. And I would also recommend these books, especially Mortal Engines. Mortal Engines is interesting, let's say, being short stories. I like Lem's short stories very much. Next up is The Three-Body Problem, written by Cixin. This is a science fiction novel at the start of a trilogy. I do not own the second and third book yet, although I will do, because I really did enjoy this first novel. After the first 50 pages. The first 50 pages, there were some characters that are frankly really unpleasant, and the way the world building goes at the start is really off-putting, and I almost did put the book down to start with, but I thought no, I've got to give it a bit more time. I pushed through, and I'm glad I did, because it does work out in the end. It's just the start is harder going than it needs to be, frankly. The concepts in this are very interesting. It's about the idea of what the gravitational effect of three orbiting bodies can have on a star, or on a separate planet I should say. Also has other intelligent alien species in it, and they interact with humanity, obviously more so in later books. And I don't want to say too much more now, but it's got interesting writing and very curious ideas, albeit a difficult start, as the case may be. The next three books are by Yoshiki Tanaka, and those are Dawn, Ambition and Endurance. The first three books in the Legend of the Galactic Heroes novel. This is a science fiction series, 10 books in total. I love the fact that these are actually numbered them, 1, 2 and 3. I just love series doing that. Anyway, this is a science fiction series, although science fiction only in terms of it being set in space with spaceships, frankly, because this is more to me alternative historical fantasy in space. Frankly, you've got the big empire, you have the civilization that has split off from the empire because they didn't like the totalitarian way the empire was run. Now these two big groups are now at war between themselves. There are a situation that occurs at the start of the first book, which obviously lights a fire and gets things going again after quite a long peaceful time. There is a third civilization in the mix, and these are just got some great characters, really fun and involved plot, and really I would recommend these enormously. I read the first two and I will be reading the third one shortly, and I will be getting the other 7 novels overall because they are frankly great. The next book that I got was Children of Ruin, written by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is the sequel and follow-up book to Children of Time, which was very popular on BookTube 2 years ago and indeed won various awards and such at the time. This is a worthy sequel to that novel. That first novel, Children of Time, basically it was the end of Earth as far as humanity could see. They set off on a long-term mission to try to find other worlds to colonise. That first mission didn't go as well as they thought because they found that the world they were looking at happened to be inhabited by other intelligent life. This second novel is about a separate mission that set off at the same time as the first one, pretty much, but this has a different ending to, let's say. Whereas that novel found an intelligent species, this had a different journey, and the ending at the end of this novel is interesting. I expect there will be a third book, and there could be a few more of them, I don't know yet, but they could go some interesting places with this world and the ideas that Tchaikovsky's created in this, because they are very well written, interesting and strange, but fun overall. The next book is Beauty by Robin Mckinley. This is a fantasy retelling of Beauty and the Beast. Basically, this is a far more optimistic and positive version of Beauty and the Beast. I am an optimist by nature, as I've said many times before, so this really worked for me because the writing was amazing. The characters were frankly nice characters and actually tried to help each other rather than just stab each other in the back and frankly be unpleasant. Certain characters like Gaston from the original Beauty and the Beast were not there in this novel. It's a more easier going novel and there's less conflict and it's just nicer than Beauty and the Beast. I mean, Beauty and the Beast itself is a nice story as such, but this is just less conflict, more straightforward, but more emotion behind the characters, and I really liked it actually, and I will definitely read more by Mckinley in the future, and indeed this is the first Mckinley I've read, won't be the last. The next 2 novels are also by Raymond E. Feist again, and those are Honoured Enemy and Murder in Lamut. These are books 1 and 2 in the Legends of the Rift War trilogy. The third book I have on order, but it is proving to be very slow in getting to me. I am actually literally waiting for that third book, so then I can actually read these first 2 and then that third book. This is basically an offshoot trilogy. Officially, though, people have said that you don't really need to read this to carry on with the overall greater story of the Rift World universe, which I've already talked about earlier in the video, but I want to read them in this order. I'm determined to read them in a very particular order, which I've already decided on, so these need to be read now. Next, I'm literally waiting for the third book. As I said, they are just interesting, fun fantasy novels with great characters and great world building, and you know, they're just nice to read and just fun overall. Next up is the Embers of War Trilogy, written by Gareth Powell. This comprises Embers of War, unsurprisingly, which is the one I've read of these books and I really enjoyed it. And then books 2 and 3, which I haven't yet read, are Fleet of Knives and Light of Impossible Stars. This trilogy is a really fun, fairly fast-paced science fiction trilogy. I really enjoyed the first novel, hence why I immediately, literally I was halfway through Embers of War and I was like, no, I know I'm going to want to read the second and third books. So I actually ordered these already, and by the time I'd finished this book I'd already got these 2 waiting for me, and indeed I will be reading these probably within the next week or 2 at the most. This is a really fun science fiction trilogy. It has interesting characters. It has a sentient spaceship which can think for itself, which is always a fun thing to encounter in a science fiction novel. And overall, I really would recommend these novels because they're just well written, thoughtful, the pacing is excellent, and the world building is also really intricate and nuanced as well, which I would always recommend. The penultimate book in this book haul is Super Cons by J.G. Ballard. Now, I have read 3 books by Ballard in the past, I believe. It could have been 2, but I can't remember off the top of my head. And I have greatly enjoyed both of those. Hence, like Lem earlier in the video, I bought this literally without even looking at what it was about. I just knew that this is Ballard. I have enjoyed Ballard's writing style so far, and he has not let me down. And I have a certain confidence that even if this turns out to be strange, it will still be interesting and thought-provoking, which frankly Ballard is very good at doing. And I'll actually read the synopsis for this one because I literally don't know nothing about it at all. A disturbing mystery awaits Paul and Jane Sinclair when they arrive in Eden Olympia, a high-tech business park in the hills above Cannes. Jane is to work as a doctor for those who live in the ultra-modern works paradise, but what caused her predecessor to go on a shooting spree that made headlines around the world? Okay. As Paul investigates, he begins to uncover a thriving subculture of crime that is spiraling out of control. Okay, I literally didn't know what that actually was going to be then. So this is about a mass shooting, which is surprising by itself. I didn't, although, so surprising, considering the first book by him was High Rise, which is dark and has some pretty strange violence in it, in its own way. This doesn't really surprise me. His books have remarkable ideas in them with a very unique way of writing and a way of portraying the ideas. He's always trying to make a point about very particular things, and he does it with a really remarkable flair and a talent for words that is second to none and is excellent, frankly. So I'll be very happy to get into this probably soon. And finally, the last book is one that I've actually, this is actually one of the first books I brought in this book haul, but it's actually one I haven't read yet, and that is Ancestral Night, written by Elizabeth Bear. Now, the reason I bought this book was because of Rachel, known as Kalnadi on BookTube. She really likes this book. I trust Rachel's opinion completely, and this sounded quite interesting in her review, and indeed the synopsis, which I'll read out, sounded good, so I just thought, I'll buy and read it and more than likely enjoy it. So, synopsis. A routine salvage mission uncovers evidence of a terrible crime and relics of a powerful ancient technology, just as Jaime and a small crew run afoul of pirates at the outer limits of the Milky Way and find themselves both on the run and in possession of ancient universal changing technology. So this definitely sounds like my kind of book, and I am quite looking forward to getting around to it. Science fiction, good ideas, probably great characters, and an awful that I haven't read yet as well, so this should be overall a very interesting experience. So, with that said, that's it for this video. If you've read any of these books, I can't hold all of them up because there's actually that many of them. I'm not sure how I'm going to do the thumbnail of this video, but it should be interesting. Then please leave a comment and we can have a talk below. All social media links to anything I mentioned, as well as the people I mentioned, like Rachel, can be found in the description box below as well. And that said, that is it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you another day. Bye for now.